Hello and welcome to my channel for a Spatch. I am going to try, test and review a colour by Daniel Smith called Quinacridone Lilac. I can see that some of you might ask, in a range when there are already quite a few quinacridones sitting somewhere between pink and magenta, what the use would be of yet another one called Quinacridone Lilac. And that is a perfectly legitimate question. There are a lot of quinacridones in the Daniel Smith range, so why add another one? In order to try to answer that, I'm not only going to test Quinacridone Lilac on its own for its own virtues, I am also going to compare it with the other ones in the range. So you can see after drying that the pigment is quite saturated. It's also transparent, it's light fast, it's non-granulating. So all these are good characteristics. If you're a pigment and you want to be in my palette, these are definitely some things to go for. Another thing that would be good would be if it mixed a good purple. I still don't have a ready-made purple in my palette because I still haven't found one that I find satisfying, really. They're all a bit too dull, not saturated enough or not light fast. I haven't found a good quality purple pigment with good characteristics, so I'm relying on this type of color, Quinacridone Magenta, to mix purple. So with French ultramarine, for example. Oh, that's luscious. Look at that. That is beautiful. That's a red biased purple. We can add more blue. Oh, that is very nice. Really good range of purple there and quite a high level of saturation. You see that level of saturation even with a ready-made purple with a single pigment you wouldn't get. It just doesn't exist yet. I'm sure one manufacturer at some point will discover one or invent one, but that level of saturation is the kind of level of saturation I want with my purple, and Quinacridone Lilac is very good for that. Now let's try with Winsor Blue Red Shade, which is this color, in case I want a purple that doesn't granulate. Again, quite a good level of saturation, not as saturated as with the ultramarine, but this is because Winsor Blue Red Shade is not quite as valid as French ultramarine, but this will not granulate, this will granulate. So on a level of saturation on its own, I'm trying a second wash here. That increases the saturation even more. Whether it's on its own or mixed to make a purple, Quinacridone Lilac has got a really nice high level of saturation. I'm quite happy with that. Now let's compare with the other quinacridones in the range to see if it's a redundant color, if it's already in a range under another name, or if it's good enough to stand on its own and make a good addition to the palette. So I've painted a blob of different colors on here that I'm gonna wash down to compare the colors. This is Quinacridone Red. Now the Quinacridone Red with Daniel Smith is not what Quinacridone Red is in other brands. What other brands are calling Quinacridone Red, Daniel Smith called Quinacridone Coral. So Quinacridone Red in this range is a lot pinker than what we're used to as Quinacridone Red. Quinacridone Pink, as the name says, is the pinkest in the range. Quinacridone Rose is a pink as well, but it's just starting to go towards magenta, so it's not as quite as pink as the pink. Quinacridone Lilac is the one we're looking at. So you can see straight away that it is no longer a pink. We're definitely going towards magenta here. Also, I've actually never seen lilac this color. I don't know why it's called lilac. Lilac to me is a lot bluer than that, but I suppose it sounds nice, Quinacridone Lilac. But you can see it's a lot more magenta than the rose next to it. Quinacridone Magenta. This one I've got proper magenta name. And you can see it's got more blue in that than the Quinacridone Lilac. So Quinacridone Lilac is definitely different from the rose and different from the magenta. Now Quinacridone Fuchsia, another flower. We've got a rose, a lilac and a fuchsia now. Again, it's different. It's more going towards a sort of maroon purple, that one. And then Quinacridone Violet, which is again sort of a magenta, but with a lot more blue. In it than the magenta. So you can see the progression here. And you can see that actually Quinacridone Lilac pretty much stands on its own there. It is definitely different from the other ones. So we're going to wait until it dries, and then we're going to have another look at it once it's dried. Okay, so I have let the colors dry, and then I have done some mixes with French Ultramarine to see which ones perform the best. Now that they're all dry, you can see that they are all different. Quinacridone Lilac and Quinacridone Magenta are quite similar when they're applied thickly, but as you water them down, you can see that lilac is more saturated than magenta. And the same goes for pink and rose. They look very similar in thick washes, but when you thin them down, you can see that pink is pinker than rose. Now when it comes to the performance with the mix with French Ultramarine, Quinacridone Red, not surprisingly, is quite dull as a purple, because this is a bit too red, not pink enough to make a bright purple. Pink is a little bit more saturated, rose is even better, and then Quinacridone Lilac actually is quite saturated here. Surprisingly more than magenta. Fuchsia is not very good at all. I mean, it's good if you want a very neutral purple, but if you want a bright one, Quinacridone Fuchsia is not the color to go with. And Quinacridone Violet, same thing really. It's a lot less saturated than these two, so I think Quinacridone Rose and Quinacridone Lilac are the best ones when it comes to mixing purple. I would probably say Quinacridone Rose is better if you want a bluer purple, and Quinacridone Lilac is better if you want a more magenta purple. Now let's see what happens when I use Quinacridone Lilac in a proper painting. Now this is a rose that I have been working on using Quinacridone Lilac. It is a rose called Odyssey, and it's got some very lilac-y petals. I mean, I would call them lilac, but they're a lot bluer than Quinacridone Lilac is on its own. So I added Winsor Blue Red Shade to Quinacridone Lilac to make that purple, that lilac really. So I've used masking fluid for the stamen, so this is why this is blue here. At the end, all the stamen will be crimson and yellow. But you can see that the mix of Quinacridone Lilac and Winsor Blue Red Shade are working really nicely. I'm really pleased with the delicacy of the colour. It's a very delicate rose, so I didn't want anything too heavy, which is why I didn't want the granulation of French ultramarine. But yeah, I'm very happy with the mix. I think this is a very subtle colour, which is very well suited to rose. In conclusion, I would say that Quinacridone Lilac is a very good performing colour. It's got high level of saturation, good transparency, it's very delicate when you need your subject to be delicate. It would be a little bit more robust looking if I had mixed it with French ultramarine. Transparent, light fast, saturated, and I must say I'm a bit surprised at that. It actually has a space between Quinacridone Pink and Quinacridone Magenta, so yeah, Quinacridone Lilac is gonna make it to my palette. Thank you very much for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Have you tried Quinacridone Lilac? What did you think? Let me know in the comments below. Please like and subscribe if you want more videos, as it helps me in the ratings. And I'll see you soon in the next Florist Match video. Thank you. Bye.